my back blown out in peace. You think I got time to talk about a divorce that's a year old?
It started with a screenshot. Blurry, slightly pixelated, and posted late at night by an anonymous account with barely any followers. At first, no one paid attention. It looked like one of those random fan theories, just another person online claiming to know something they didn't. But then someone zoomed in, and what they saw changed everything. The handwriting, the date, the heartbreaking tone. It didn't take long before people realized what they were looking at wasn't fiction. It was real. It was raw. And it belonged to Teyana Taylor. A diary entry, never meant to see the light of day, now exposed for the entire internet to dissect, analyze, and mourn. The leak spread like wildfire. One screenshot turned into 3, then 10. Within hours, full pages from what appeared to be Teyana's private journal were circulating across Twitter, Instagram, and gossip sites. People were reposting with shaking hands and teary captions, calling it the most honest thing they'd ever read. And at the center of it all, just 6 words written in slanted, aching handwriting, "Aaron was my biggest regret ever." It hit hard. Fans, followers, even critics, no one was prepared for the depth of what Teyana had written. This wasn't a diss track. This wasn't a vague tweet. This wasn't a PR stunt. These were the inner thoughts of a woman who had clearly endured something heavy, something she never expected to face and never wanted anyone to read. But now that it was out, there was no going back. And the truth pouring from those pages? It cut deep. Teyana wrote about loving someone who made her question her own worth. She didn't name names in every entry, but the timelines lined up. The context made it obvious. The references to his quiet lies, his fake comfort, and his habit of disappearing whenever I started to feel safe, they all pointed in one direction. Aaron Pierre, the man many believed had stepped in to heal her after her split from Amon. The one who smiled silently at red carpet events, standing just out of frame but always near. The man fans once thought might be the calm after Teyana's storm. But behind closed doors, according to her own words, he was the very storm she never saw coming. In one particularly heartbreaking passage, dated just a few months before everything fell apart, Teyana wrote, "He held me like I was glass. Not because I was fragile, but because he didn't want to get cut. He didn't love me. He loved how I made him look." That line alone sent the internet into a frenzy. People reposted it with stunned reactions, realizing that what looked like a quiet romance from the outside was hiding deep emotional fractures. But the diary didn't just touch on heartbreak. It exposed betrayal. There were pages that detailed moments where Teyana begged herself to walk away, but couldn't. Every time I thought I'd had enough, he'd come back softer, with words I wanted to hear. And I'd fall for them every time because I wanted them to be true. She described feeling manipulated, abandoned, and emotionally drained. And yet, she stayed. Not because she was weak, but because she was human. Because hope is a powerful drug when you're already hurting. One entry, dated right after her separation from Amon Shumpert, read like a whisper. She described nights where she cried alone, curled up on a bathroom floor, afraid her daughters would hear. She admitted she thought Aaron had come into her life to help her heal. That he said all the right things at first, called her strong, told her she didn't need to hide her pain. But slowly, his warmth faded. Asterisk, he went from asking how I slept, she wrote, to asking who would be watching the kids when I toured. The affection vanished. The questions got colder, and her sense of safety with him dissolved. Perhaps the most gut-wrenching entry of all was the one where she wrote about her pregnancy. That one page alone, titled simply "The Night I Told Him," was enough to break even the most stoic hearts. Teyana didn't go into clinical details. She didn't describe symptoms or test results. Instead, she focused on the emotion, the silence that followed her words, the way Aaron looked at her like she was an inconvenience, not a partner. The first thing he asked, she wrote, was if I had told the press. Not how I felt, not if I was scared, just if it would go public. That line shattered her fans. It painted a picture of a man more worried about perception than parenthood, more concerned with privacy than partnership. And as more entries leaked, that theme kept showing up: Aaron's obsession with image. Teyana wrote how he hated mess, how he avoided confrontation, how he ghosted her for days whenever she expressed sadness. "He only liked me when I was smiling," she wrote. "The second I cried, he'd vanish." It became clear that behind the flashbulbs and filtered Instagram posts was a woman holding herself together with tape and hope. People online began putting the pieces together. They went back to old interviews, to moments where Teyana seemed withdrawn or tired. One fan reposted a clip from a red carpet event where she was asked if she was in love again. She had smiled weakly and said, "I'm figuring it out." Now, people saw that clip in a new light, not as coyness, but as coded pain. The internet wasted no time shifting its focus to Aaron. Once admired as a soft-spoken, rising star with charm and composure, his silence in the aftermath of the leak was louder than any statement. No denial, no clarification, not even a vague post hinting at his side of the story. Just stillness, and it unsettled everyone. Fans started asking the obvious: was he guilty? Or simply too ashamed to speak up? A few tried to defend him, suggesting diaries can be misleading, emotional snapshots captured in moments of deep hurt, not necessarily the whole truth. But others weren't so quick to let him off the hook. Even if it was written in pain, one tweet read, "That pain was real, and someone caused it." But the most powerful parts of the diary weren't just about Aaron. They were about Teyana's internal struggle, her war with herself. She didn't solely point fingers. She turned the mirror inward, often in ways that were heartbreakingly unfair. In one entry, she questioned her own judgment, wondering aloud if she had rushed into love to fill a deeper emptiness. "I wanted to feel wanted," she wrote. "I mistook attention for affection." That kind of vulnerability resonated deeply. She wasn't trying to play the victim. She wasn't writing to accuse. She was trying to understand herself, her choices, her pain. And in doing so, she gave voice to something many had felt, but never had the courage to say out loud. Her truth wasn't polished. It was messy, flawed, human, and that's exactly what made it beautiful. Days after the leak rocked the internet, Teyana finally broke her silence, without saying a word. She posted a single message to her Instagram story, a plain black background with stark white letters that read, "Some truths burn, but they set you free." No names, no tags, no clarifications. She didn't confirm whether the leaked diary was real or not. She didn't owe anyone that. The message spoke for itself. She wasn't ducking the headlines, and she definitely wasn't hiding. She was standing in her truth, no matter how painful it was. The internet responded instantly. Fans poured into her comment sections with love, calling her brave, strong, and resilient. Celebrities followed suit, sharing her post or writing messages of support. But it wasn't just about Teyana anymore. The moment became something bigger. Women across platforms started telling their own stories of betrayal, of silent suffering, of smiling for the world while breaking behind closed doors. What began as drama turned into a movement. A mirror. A wake-up call. Proof that pain lives even behind the most polished smiles and picture-perfect lives. Meanwhile, Aaron remained silent. Not a word on social media. Not even a vague statement. Just absence. Some insiders close to him whispered that he was blindsided by the leak and felt deeply betrayed by someone in Teyana's circle. But none of it was confirmed. And honestly, most people didn't care. Because with each passing day, public sympathy eroded. "He's not devastated," she wrote it. One viral tweet said. "He's devastated, we read it." And just like that, the spotlight shifted from a messy relationship to a much deeper conversation. Teyana had spoken her truth, and the world was finally listening. But the diary wasn't just filled with sorrow. Scattered between the pain were moments of quiet strength, small but powerful victories that showed Teyana pulling herself out of the darkness, inch by inch. There were entries about mornings when she forced herself out of bed, choosing to put on makeup not because she wanted to, but because she refused to let the sadness win. She wrote about days when she smiled for her daughters, even when her chest felt hollow and her eyes burned from crying all night. One page stood out among the rest. It read, simply, "I survived worse. And I'm still here." That one line, just 6 words, became a rallying cry for thousands. Fans screenshotted it, printed it, shared it across timelines. Some even tattooed it on their bodies, wearing it like armor. Because in a world where grief often hides behind filters and flawless images, Teyana's raw honesty gave people permission to feel and to heal.